Greetings, respected viewers. It's George from Ireland, and here I am at Richmond Bridge in London. Well, just a few hours ago, it was announced that Boris Johnson has been elected leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party. So Theresa May announced her intention to resign several weeks ago, and that intention has been fulfilled today. So as of 11 o'clock this morning, he was leader of the party. Now, Theresa May is still Prime Minister. It's expected that she will go to Buckingham Palace tomorrow to request that Her Majesty the Queen relieve her of her duties. The thing is, the Queen's not actually in London today, which is why the British flag, not the Royal Standard, was flying over Buckingham Palace, but presumably the Queen's coming back. So Theresa May will drive in a Prime Ministerial car to Buckingham Palace, having arranged an audience and asked to resign, and the Queen will presumably accede to that request. The Queen always acts on the Prime Minister's advice, and then Theresa May will drive away. There'll be a phone call to Boris Johnson wherever he is, inviting him to the palace to kiss hands, but he merely brushes his hands with her lips. So, and that's that, and then she appoints him Prime Minister. There's no document signed as such. There's no prime ministerial oath, and that's that. But of course, for scintilla temporis, there is no Prime Minister. Between when Theresa May resigns and when he's appointed might be 20 minutes. So nobody's got their finger on the nuclear button for those 20 minutes, so let's hope that nobody gets up to no good in that time. Now, I chose this particular location because this is the sort of London suburb he needs to win. This side of the bridge is Twickenham. This constituency is held by Sir Vince Cable, or Dr. Cable, as he was previously known, who ceased to be leader of the Liberal Democrats only yesterday. So we've had two leadership election announcements in 2 days. Jo Swinson, at the age of only 9 and 30 years, is a leader of the Liberal Democrats, the first woman to lead the Liberal Party, or now the Liberal Democrats, ever. So the Labour Party is the only party in the United Kingdom not to have been led by a woman. Sinn Féin, the DUP, the SDLP, the Green Party, the Scottish National Party, the Conservative Party, you name it, UKIP, they've all been led by a woman, just not Labour. What is it with them and feminism, hey? But anyway, over that side of the river, that is a Richmond Hill constituency held by the multi-millionaire scion of a hotel family, Zach Goldsmith, who was at some time the Conservative contender for the mayoralty of London. Richmond Hill, you can't quite see it from this angle. So that's Conservative held. We're over there in a Liberal Democrat territory where I'm standing. So this was briefly won by a Conservative doctor in 2015, but won back by Vince Cable in 2017. So Boris Johnson, he needs to hold on to Richmond Hill for the Conservatives and needs to win Twickenham over here. Again, it needs to gain that. So what's he going to do? Well, the easy part is over, which was obviously winning the Conservative leadership. He was a front runner really from before it even started. So all he had to do was play to the gallery of the blue rinse. Blue rinse, obviously a hairstyle for a woman d'un certain âge, and they make up a lot of the Conservative grassroots. So they clap and cheer and hoot and stamp their feet to talk and bring back the death penalty and things like that, and indeed leaving the European Union. So he was certainly willing to make a nod to the right on certain issues, and for years, since he was the Daily Telegraph's Brussels correspondent in 1989, he was always throwing some red meat to Eurosceptic opinion. And people say that privately his views were completely opposed to what he was saying in public. But now, he wanted to get up the top of the greasy pole, and he's got there, and he's a very saponaceous person, so he was suitable for that. And he will say and do anything to advance his own career. As Sir Nick Clegg cattily but accurately said, he is Trump with a thesaurus. And by the way, I find Boris Johnson to be a barrel of laughs. He's bumptious, he's rumbustious, he's effervescing with energy. There is really never a dull moment with him. His cup overfloweth when it comes to literary talent, and indeed that for public speaking, but he's completely unsubstantial. I remember 20 years ago hearing that notorious speech of his about the NHS, where he's cracking jokes about more toast for his wife after she gave birth. All right, but it's a bit more serious than that. You know, this is not a laughing matter. People dying avoidably, people being in agony avoidably. We need some serious policies, and this will not cut it, these witticisms about toast. So he's a deeply unserious man. I don't want everyone to be a policy wonk. But what is it beneath that? There's so much of a charade. I wonder, has he become the act, Or is this a defense mechanism protecting him because in some ways he's vulnerable, he's shy, he actually is profoundly insecure, he lacks self-confidence, though he radiates it. But maybe that's all pretense. He was perhaps psychologically wounded by his parents' very messy divorce in the 70s. So he craves adulation. And he certainly, for years, has been the most recognisable politician in the United Kingdom. And he just seemed so eccentric, too much of a circus act, as Alan Duncan said, to get the top spot. Well, the clown will get the crown, now it appears, probably tomorrow. I remember Tony Blair said the first thing that was done to him was they explained how to launch the nuclear bomb, which turned his face white. So it is an awe-striking responsibility. But now Bojo said that Brexit is a do-or-die mission by the 31st of October. Now, this pledge helped him get elected. Why did he win? Partly because of name recognition and because he was such an entertainer, but also because this was written in blood, they're going to do Brexit. But we know what Bojo is like. He will renege on his promises, even more so than most politicians. So we may see chicanery in the offering, a bit like he promised to get down into trench to defend Ian Duncan Smith as leader and then voted against him. Or he promised to lie down in front of a bulldozer to stop a third runaway at Heathrow, and then he conveniently missed the vote on that when it came up in cabinet, or all sorts of things. So Bojo, not very easy to take seriously on crime. Remember in 1990 he notoriously spoke to his old school friend Darius Guppy, gave him the address of a certain journalist, I think his name was Stuart Collier, who Darius Guppy said he wanted to severely beat up, hospitalise, and Bojo gave him that, but that was recorded by Guppy's business partner, who found Guppy to be so untrustworthy that he was recording his phone calls. So there we are. This was no joke. He was 26. He wasn't a schoolboy, and there he was colluding in supposedly a serious assault on someone, and that was that. So he's managed to laugh a lot of these things off, but now the time for laughing is over, and he needs to deliver. And that's going to be a real headache. How's he going to do it? So much of Parliament is pledged to stop a no deal. And he said, you've got to have a no deal. And he's quite right. If you're going to be credible in negotiations, you've got to have a no deal. He wants another parley with the European Union, but they said, no, the time for talking is over. We need to do it. They say that through back channels, they said they could make some minor concessions. They don't want a no deal either. It would hurt the EU as well, hurt the United Kingdom more. I don't want a no deal. I want a good deal. I would have reluctantly taken the deal that was offered several months ago. The United Kingdom could have left the EU with an agreement. That was offered, all right, but it was voted down mainly by extremist Remainers. So some Remainers are saying that they would do anything to stop it. Jo Swinson, leader of the Liberal Democrats, saying that she will stop at nothing to prevent Brexit. Not a no-deal Brexit, to prevent Brexit full stop, which is a shockingly anti-democratic attitude. Now, the Liberal Democrats love referenda because they always lose elections. 10 years ago, Nick Clegg proposed a referendum on EU membership. The first party in Westminster proposed that. UKIP wasn't in Westminster at the time. Well, he was hoisted on his own petard. He helped to front the Remain campaign, and he lost, and he was rewarded for his incompetence and failure with a knighthood. It's staggering. There he is. And he actually was then hired by Google, and he confirmed, Facebook, and he confirmed there was no Russian hacking of the referendum. It's very difficult for some fanatical Remainers to accept, but it was a free and fair vote, and the people, completely informed of all the possible downsides, and despite Project Fear, voted for independence. And the only logical and just thing to do is to give effect to that. No, you don't like it, but that's it. You know, they won the referendum, the Leavers, they won the general election, all three parties pledging to implement Leave in 2017. Admittedly, the Liberal Democrats said after a second referendum, that position has now changed. No second referendum, simply no Brexit. They are willing to thwart the settled will of the people. Now, I know opinion polls claim that to show that opinion has shifted a little, but an opinion poll is an opinion poll. It is not a referendum. We had the result. Get on and do it. And what else? So there we are. There's the Referendum Act. It was passed by Parliament. There was the EU Notice of Withdrawal Act passed by Parliament. There was the EU Withdrawal Act passed by Parliament. So Parliament's had its say. The UK should leave on the 31st of October, come what may. I prefer with a deal. We have to prepare for the possibility that there won't be one. So Bojo is going to have his work cut out because a lot of Labour are going to vote to stay in the EU. If they don't get a very good deal, which they probably won't, the Liberal Democrats definitely will, and certainly a considerable faction, the Conservative and Unionist Party, will as well. So what's he going to do? Call an early election? He might lose office immediately. There might be some sort of rainbow coalition of Labour, the Liberal Democrats, the SNP, possibly a faction of the Conservative Party. I think this Westminster Independent Group, or whatever they want to call themselves, Change UK, I think they'll all lose their seats. They would have been sensible to join the Liberal Democrats, so they're going nowhere fast. There's scarcely enough room for 3 parties in Westminster. There certainly isn't enough room for 4. And I'm talking about parties which are across Great Britain, not just parties that say only in Scotland or only in Wales or only in Northern Ireland. Admittedly, the 3 Westminster parties don't stand in Northern Ireland, the 3 major ones. So that's that. Boris Johnson, well, he may well be on a hiding to nothing. So how is he going to deliver Brexit? That'll be fascinating to see. As I say, I actually don't think it will happen, even though I want it to happen, because the Euro fanatic elite is just absolutely so determined. They will stop at nothing to do this. They're hell-bent on preventing it. And I've heard that Lord Mandelson, this necromancer of New Labour, he's got something up his sleeve. And in the run-up to the 31st of October, he will say that the EU has offered the UK a reprieve. They've thrown the UK a lifeline. The United Kingdom ought to be so grateful. But I remember in March, when at the last minute it was delayed, and again in April it was delayed, there was a palpable lack of panic. The sky will not fall. There is not going to be economic downturn. There will be some difficulties, all right? But the idea that we're going to have no medicines and no food is absolutely preposterous. By the way, most of us could afford to go on a diet. So get real and stop trying to scare us. It is contemptible, and it's not working, this Project Fear Mark II. So there we are, Boris Johnson. Since he was a toddler, he aspired to be world king, as his sister Rachel unhelpfully vouchsafed. So finally, his dreams are to become true. He's going to be the 55th Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and he's 55 years old. With his girlfriend Carrie Symonds, age 31, he's going to move in with her to Downing Street, and he insisted that the government purchase him a bed. This man makes over £500,000 a year from journalism, besides his parliamentary salary. What a skinflint. I pay for my own bed. People on minimum wage pay for their own bed. Why on earth is he such a tightwad he's not even going to buy his own bed? It sits ill that a man who was always slagging off the EU for being profligate and wasting public funds is so stingy himself when it comes to something like his sleeping arrangements. And speaking of sleeping arrangements, he's a notorious womanizer, so it's only a matter of time before he's having an affair with someone else. Beano Boris is also bonking Boris. So he's got 5 children, 4 with his wife, or ex-wife, Marina Wheeler, and 1 with one of his paramours. So about 10 years ago, he had a child with his interior designer. And then he shockingly tried to get an injunction to stop the press publishing that, which is an absolute scandal coming from someone who posed as a champion of the free media. And the judge said, obviously, that revealing that someone has a child is not a crime. Why should the press have to hush it up? Okay, someone's birth is a matter of public record. You can see anybody's birth certificate in this country legally, and there's no reason why this little girl should be any exception. So if you don't want the press to report that you have a child, Boris, then don't have a child, okay? Because it could be pertinent to public debate. Some people would find it instructive to know that he had an extramarital affair and will make a judgment about his personal ethics and might choose not to vote for him on that basis. So there we are. He's no exception. There's no reason why his private life would be uniquely privileged from public scrutiny, and the media has the absolute right to report the birth of anybody's child. So there we are. So we're in for certainly a fascinating roller coaster ride with Boris Johnson, with Bojo, with Boris, the only politician in the UK who's known mononymically. Anyway, it's going to get an awful lot more difficult from here on in, and people might be wishing they had Theresa May back. So as Nick Clegg said, Boris Johnson, he's Trump with a thesaurus. Well, which is better than Nick Clegg, who is Hillary Clinton without a thesaurus. I think Latin tags are not going to do the trick anymore. He's got to deliver, and that is a very tall order. How is he going to get Brexit? And the thing is, he is such a weather-vane mind. All he cares about is Boris. He's not driven by any policy agenda, and so he's someone who is so capable of performing a volte-face. It wouldn't surprise me if before 31st of October he said, I've had a road to Damascus experience, the scales have fallen from my eyes, let's just remain in the European Union. And obviously people will be irate. You've got to remember, there's about 25% of the population are really hardline Brexiteers who'd vote for the Brexit Party or vote for UKIP. And if there's an election before that's been delivered, the Conservative and Unionist Party is going to lose a lot of votes, more so than Labour. So Jeremy Corbyn becoming Prime Minister, not impossible now, even though he's doing so badly in the polls, because Bojo set himself a task of delivering Brexit and defeating Jeremy Corbyn, which suggests he'd like an election quite soon. But if we come to 2020 and Brexit has been delivered, then Corbyn will have been seen to have failed. He's under a lot of pressure in his party anyway over anti-Semitism and so on, so he may well be defenestrated and they would get a more capable leader, which will be a real problem from Bojo. If Chuku Umunna had stayed in Labour, the top spot might have been him, but he was a fair weather friend as he deserted Labour in its hour of need. Even if he comes crawling back, I think that he's not going to get the leadership. So Boris Johnson, well, it's going to be tough for him to say the least. I won't say Theresa May was a hard act to follow. She was a heroic failure, and the country overall has been doing quite well. I know the economy is growing only slowly. Crime has risen. The NHS has difficulties, but really there have been no disasters on her watch. I just wish that Brexit had been implemented already, and that is the real stumbling block for Bojo, and I suspect he's going to stumble.